Perhaps first of all, Craig, who's not with us tonight. They are camped
Mm.
sort of in the middle of the northern Victorian, southern New South Wales desert, on their way to a mining town called Cobar. And they promised me they will stop and collect some trilobites because there's a moderately good source of them halfway
Mm.
between Deniliquin, where they were yesterday, and Cobar, where they'll be tonight. But they're probably freezing to death out in the wilderness there at the moment
Oh,
because
yes.
it's very cold out there in the
Mm.
outback of Australia. No sea breezes, not much moisture in the air. Really does lose heat quite rapidly. They've had a great time on the road. I got a report from one of our supporters in Deniliquin how they'd done a really great job, and then the schools have been excellent. So thank you to those of you who pray for us out there. The work in schools is really encouraging. There again is our theme: recognizing design, creation, etc. This is what Craig and Derek, who are on the road, have been doing in the schools, and it's been great to actually say, we will have you back. Craig, of course, as some of you know, already has his science qualification, master's degree, high quality, plus years and years of experience in forestry, plus the seahorse breeding, a wealth of information out there. Okay, so when we have a look at
Mm.
our work in our museums, we've had a pretty busy time as well. And we've been making what we call infomurals. These are roughly sort of almost a meter square, the biggest ones. And this is the latest one to join. It's a pretty controversial person, Archbishop Usher. Now, unlike most people, I've actually been to where Archbishop Usher preached. He preached in Amar. And I'll be honest, I've become really impressed with this man. Yes, he lived way back in the 1500s, up into the early 1600s. And in 1650, he's famous for a book we've got pictured on the bottom there between him and Sir Isaac Newton. He makes a statement that creation occurred on Sunday, October the 23rd, 4004 BC. But you see, I've put one extra thing. Most people mock Archbishop Usher because he was just a theologian. They don't realize that people like Isaac Newton got a very similar answer to when did creation occur. Now, I haven't heard too many people mocking Isaac Newton lately because he's really well known for his work in physics, science, maths, etc., and not known for his work in theology, because he wrote more on theology than he did at all on his physics and his science there. But basically, when you look at the scriptures, it says the world was created, it was dark, and it was the first day of the week. Sunday is the first day of the week, despite the calendar showing Monday as the first working day. Archbishop Usher and many, many others did an incredible amount of work on tracking down these dates, and Isaac Newton agreed with them. So that's gone up, and that'll be going all around our globe to our museums. Joe should have received a master by now. Craig will get one. And we've also had lots of schools. We had 3 classes at Jurassic Ark the other day. Kept me on my toes, and Daryl as well. There's one of the groups there. And they're at one of our favourite pits, excavating bones. Now, we put these bones in there, well, years ago. And in fact, what happened within 3 months, they had soaked up heaps of iron and become heavy. Now, we proved it was iron. You can do a nice simple test, crush the bone, mix it with a certain percentage of sodium hydroxide, and if it then goes a green liquid, you've got iron. Kitchen chemistry, I call it. Not a dangerous experiment, one that students can do. So we proved it's not just brown because it's got dirty, it's brown because it's soaked up iron, and that's the reason it's heavy. The importance, it didn't take tens of thousands of years. Archbishop Usher, his dates are not anti-science, they're very pro-biblical, and we don't apologize for suggesting you want to start with the Bible and go from there, because it's the words of a witness who was there, not the theories of scientists who weren't. And of course, I got a question this last week from one of our colleagues in Canada. How did we mix up our fossil imitation paste, and what did we put in it, and how well does it last? Does it last out in the sun? Well, see these fossils here? The students' leftovers from our mold castings that we made, just poured over plants and then left for years and years and years. They last really well indeed. I mean, here's one we poured on top of some cycad branches. Now, these have been sitting out in the sun untended for years and years. Now, we make our mix using a certain percentage of clay, so it actually penetrates the around the edges of the plant. You can see the detail that's preserved there. Even the little sticks on the ground have been preserved beside it. Now, a fossil is simply something that's found in a hole, and we give each of the students an artificial hole called a Chinese food container and put the fossil they're going to make in the bottom, and then we make an impression fossil, and this is exactly what happens out in the real world. And shale, well, shale is mostly clay with a little bit of other things in there, and we've made a calcium-rich shale here, and it preserves the fossils brilliantly, but it doesn't happen slowly. John Mackay's theme, slow fossils means no fossils. It's as simple as that. So we've had great fun with the schools in Jurassic Ark. Joe said we were going to deal with Psalm 8. We're also dealing with Lucy the fossil. I'll throw in a little bit about some of the evidence that man is a really ancient word, and in a world that fights over should we use a more gender-free word, humans, or that's even got man in it. We can't use that. Hominid, hominin. What sort of word should we use? But let me quote a bit from the Bible, because we're well known for doing that. In Hebrews chapter 2, it quotes from Psalm 8. And this is how the author of Hebrews writes, "But in a certain place, one of them has testified, asking, What is man that thou art mindful of him, or the Son of Man that thou visitest him?" And it says, "You made him a little lower than the angels." Now, we'll come back. That's actually the book of Hebrews, which is a reference to Psalm 8. Now, that's where I first came across, "What is man that thou art mindful of him?" Yes, in King James, it makes a brilliant song, because King James was actually written to have a very poetic, flowing, easy to memorize. Did you catch what I just said? How many Bible versions do you know of that have a rhythmic flowing one that are easy to memorize? Well, King James certainly does, and it is easy to memorize, easy to put to music. And I'd encourage you, as we talk about today, we're not just dealing with what about Lucy? Is Lucy a human being? Is she a hominid? What is she? The Bible's got a much more important question. What is man that even God is mindful of him? And in fact, in the book of Hebrews, we learn exactly which man God and the author of the Psalms are referring to.